Well, welcome back to the table. I'm Stefan, this is Ray, and we just finished up a conversation over the last couple of weeks about generosity.
Yeah,
And
couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah,
Good.
It was wonderful.
And by the way, thanks Front Street people, you're really coming through. A few of you still have your estimate of giving cards, but way ahead of where we were last year, so thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and you still have some leftover communion bread from World Communion Sunday?
Oh, no. This is not leftover bread.
Okay.
This is Yellow Dog Bakery Bread Company.
It's good?
I ain't sharing.
Okay, all right.
It's so good.
Well, we're starting a new conversation, and as we're moving along, we are talking about why are Christians different?
That's a good question.
It's a really good question. I think for a world, and we set out with this whole series of why this year, wrestling with some of those questions so that we understood as Christians and about people who want to be Christians or people who want to be or are curious about being connected to church. What is the point? What's the difference? What is the uniqueness? Why should I be involved? All of those kind of things. And so,
Heck, why do I want to be different?
yeah.
I like blending in.
That's fair.
Don't mess me up.
Some people are like that.
Yeah.
But as we think about our place in the world, and as we think about the way the world is functioning, or in some areas of our world not so functional,
Yeah.
that we as the church are set apart to be a model for the world. That Christ has commissioned us to be for the world an example of Jesus Christ lived out each and every day.
So it's like a self-examination.
It is.
Who are we really?
Yeah.
It seems to me that particularly if we look at this coming week, we're looking at 1 Corinthians 13, which a lot of people are going to think about. How many of you had that in your wedding? Paul is setting us up saying, you may have this, you may have that, you have that, you have this. But if you don't have these things, all the other stuff is rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
what Paul seems to be doing at this early junction in the church is he is not just creating a culture for the church at this point, but he is identifying what is already working within the culture of church, and taking it out, saying, "You guys already have these things.
You're doing this.
You're doing it. I'm not saying that this is." You don't have them. I'm saying you do have them.
Part of what you are.
But I don't think you've recognized how great and amazing these things are. I don't think you put these at the front of who you are quite enough yet.
So it's kind of like he's saying, some of us, you know, we wear a coat and tie to church. We think that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Well, that has nothing to do with go to church. It's kind of like saying that, you know, these things are good. Nothing wrong with those.
Yeah.
But they don't make you.
Right.
And, and it's kind of like, I mean, that's a real silly example, but Paul is setting us up for something if we'll pay attention.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
Well, he's talking to the church and kind of a new establishment of the church, because through a series of events, we now have a situation where there are Jews and Gentiles in the same place.
Living in Corinth,
and they are trying to figure out life together, and they're having an argument. They're having a fight about who is right or wrong, about how living accentuates who they are in the world. And the Jews are advocating for those older rituals that they have grown up with.
The rituals, this is the way we are to live.
Correct.
You know, all these things.
They're sticking with a biblical narrative.
Right.
The Gentiles are much more practical in some ways about the ways in which they are a part of the community, and how they engage in the community. And so they both are arguing for how everyone else will perceive them is their culture. That's their argument.
Paul is saying you can be right about where, you know, we good Jewish Pharisees, we don't wear mixed cloths.
Right.
Because that was,
right.
You didn't wear a mixed cloth, meaning of two different fabrics. You only ate certain meats.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you were rotten and going to hell. There were rituals and festivals that you must adhere by.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the Gentile Christians are saying, say what?
Right.
And the other thing the Jews have a problem with, they're in Corinth where there is a Gentile culture, and that culture is the one that's up.
Yeah.
They're the ones with power and prestige and all that. And the Jewish folks who have kind of dispersed there, they're a little bit on the lower rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
And they're trying to tell them how to live.
And so the challenge that Paul gives to the church in Corinth is dig deeper for your purpose, for your culture, for who you are in your working. It's not the activities, but deeper for what's behind it.
He's really asking or setting up and telling them, you need to be focused on your core.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else that you're doing, as the guy behind the camera said, we started out with 10 commandments, but the Jews ended up with 613 commandments.
Yeah.
And you can be doing all these things, get all these things right, do it perfectly, and still miss. Like Paul had faith.
Yeah.
He was a Pharisee above Pharisee, well-educated, had some sort of funding. So he had faith. He had hope.
Yes.
In the Messiah. That was coming.
This is a good point. Yep. Keep going.
However, he was willing to murder, to stone Christians. There was no love there.
Yeah.
So what does he go back and say?
Yeah. He talks about in the end of 1 Corinthians 13, he tells the Corinth church, and he's very direct about it. He says, for you as a church, what you need is faith, hope, and love. And he goes on, he makes sure there's that extra little tag on, and the greatest of these is love.
And we've said that so many times, and the church has heard it so many times, it's almost an afterthought.
Yep.
That was not flippant.
Yeah.
It was not flippant at all, because he hated Christians. And I think he understood.
With great faith and with great hope.
With faith and
hated
hope.
Christians.
Yeah. And so what was the thing we were talking about earlier that's kind of cliche about you can only love God as much as you love?
Yeah. Dorothy Day says this. She says, I only love God as much as I love the people I love the least.
So think about, and that I think is what Paul is getting at. There is no possible way you can be a disciple of Jesus when that LOVE doesn't come first. And it's prominent.
How he starts. He says you could be the most beautiful musician in the world. You could feed all the people with grand luxury meals. You could do all of these. You could give an immense amount of money.
Nothing wrong with them.
If you don't do these with love, then you're a clanging gong, or you're a noisy cymbal, or you're just a straw in the wind.
You're just noise. You're just noise. And Paul says, and certainly Jesus said, we're called to be life. We're called to be life-giving as Christ.
Yes.
Not life-taking.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think that's so true. I think not only, and there's another level to it too, right? Because
I can only go so deep, man.
Well, we're setting this up for a long conversation, is that we as Christians are looking for those foundations within ourselves of faith, of hope, and of love. But we also understand that other people of the world who are not Christians have faith, have hope, and many have love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we don't take any of that away. We don't subsume that we have the rightness of any of that. But I do think for us as Christians that we have, or aim to have, a closer, more complete, more grand, maybe even more miraculous involvement with those things of faith, of hope, and of love.
Because the thing I think we have to ask ourselves, which is where you started, that the world's already asking. When people think, if I'm a non-Christian, I'm a whatever, I didn't grow up in any religious faith. When I think Christian, what we want them to think is they are the most loving people on the planet everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So is that true in my life? That's the personal question. Then it's a communal question.
Yes.
When they think of us at Front Street, when the non-faith community thinks of Front Street, what do they think of? Or your church, no matter where it is or what it is, what do you think the community's thinking about?
Yeah.
Are they thinking about, that is the most loving place I have ever been part of?
Yeah. As we're thinking about Paul, and I think what's extra special about these things is we may lay it on thick because we think they're special, but Paul laid it on thick because he thought they were special. Because there's a litany of other words that Paul could have focused on for the culture of the church. He could have done truth. He could have done honesty. He could have done generosity is not in there. We just got done with it, but justice. Any of those words could have made it onto that list. But Paul focuses in very strongly on faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these being love. It almost kind of reminds me of where we're sitting right now. We're in downtown Cary at the Cary Park, And of all the things that Cary could have done to make this a place where people are drawn in, there's an intentional feature that was not here before, but they made sure it was here because it naturally by itself draws in life.
It almost gives life.
And it gives life.
Yeah.
It's this water feature, this kind of short but totally man-made river that's here that goes through the middle of the park. Out of all of human history, life has centered around water because water is a source of life and nourishment for all creatures. And so for Cary to recognize that while there's not a water feature here right now, there could be, and that could be the centerpiece of what we expect and hope for from the very beings of creation itself, there was an intentional choice there. And I think the reason why I accentuate that right now is for Paul. Paul is making an intentional, careful decision to say that faith, hope, and love, while they may be hot words that we throw out all the time in church, we should not overlook the importance of them.
They are imperatives.
They are imperatives. They are the glue and the pieces of the culture that without any of them,
we have none.
We have none.
That makes us distinctive or different.
Correct.
You know, we had some bread earlier from Yellow Dog Bread Company, and it's a baguette.
Yeah.
But you know, if I buy a baguette at the supermarket or whatever, brother, it is not this.
Ooh.
I mean, this thing, you break it and you know, this ain't normal. This is bread. I mean, it is so good. I haven't had lunch today. He had lunch. And it just shows you what you think is, you know, just normal, maybe just average. When you break this open and you have a piece of it and you hear it and you feel it and then you eat that inside, it's a real deal. See you next week at the table.
When it shines a light, whenever God shines his light on you.